All right. Let's get this out of the way first. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast are solely those of the speakers, guests, and host, and do not in any way represent the thoughts or views or opinions of any other employer, partnership, or sponsor. The material and information in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should be used at the listener's discretion. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast. My name's Chris, here in the garage. Welcome to the show. Hanging out, and outside of that garage is a big old truck. Not a new truck, new to me, 2021, but a big old 2500, and that's going to be the topic of today's episode. I broke one of my rules to get that truck, and now I'm paying for it, quite literally, so we're going to talk about it. So you can learn from my mistakes, or at least put it off for a long time before you're forced into it, quote-unquote forced into it like me. Nobody made me buy the truck. My lifestyle did, and now we're going to talk about it. But before we do that, go to check out my affiliates. Yes, I'm using a hockey stick as a microphone today. Go check out my affiliates, Rescue One CBD, 0.000 THC, safe for the job, and also Fourth Frontier heart rate monitoring, maker of the X2 heart rate monitoring strap, the only one in the industry that shows lead to EKG. So here we are. And to tell that story, I got to tell this story. Start off with a tiny camper. It's called an A-frame camper. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's super cool. And if I could, I would still have one. I even thought about just recently buying an extra one to have it because I loved it so much. It's basically a pop-up camper without the sides. It turns into a big triangle. So it's a hard-sided pop-up camper. Very small, though. Like on a pop-up camper, the sides come out and there's like a queen bed on each side, each front and back. This does not have that. It comes up into like a TP shape or a triangle shape. And there's little bump outs in the windows, but it's very small. It's awesome. I towed it with a 6-cylinder truck wonderfully. I was still getting like 18 to 20 miles per gallon. It was great. That's when it was just me and Katie and the dogs. But this thing was so small, we only took the dogs on one trip because it was too tight with 2 humans and 2 dogs in the thing. Then we got rid of it because we're like, well, we're going to have kids soon, hopefully. Let's get rid of the camper because it's going to shut down our camping plans for a few years. Held on to the truck. Took a little bit longer to have kids than we expected. Then we got back into camping. Then we got a 21-foot camper, which was, in my opinion, the best. Only second to the A-frame. But it was the best. It was 21 feet. You could literally take it through like a Starbucks drive-through. I had the 1500, so I got a bigger truck. It was just awesome. Again, great gas mileage, no slide, very simple, but man, was it tight, especially with the 2 kids. It felt like a jail cell. And it was a flip-down bed, a Murphy bed, on the front, so Katie didn't like that because there's one more step at night because you have to fold the bed down and make the bed. And with the kids getting older and toys being everywhere, it was just tight. And we were starting to go on longer and longer trips. So if there was a rainy day or we were sunburnt or wanted to stay in for a day, it was not as comfortable staying in the camper for a day. We had to go somewhere. We had to find like a museum or a restaurant or something to go to, and it just wasn't convenient. So we had a lot of things that we liked about camping. We liked that it was, after the initial setup, it was way more affordable because camping's like, I know there's a meme out there of like, why would we spend $200 a night in Airbnb when we can spend $86,000 and bring our house with us? That's true. I get it, but it's also funny. But once you get going, once you get to start up the truck and the camper or whatever you're using, it is a lot cheaper. It's like $40 for a campsite with full hookup in some places. And some places are more like $100, but those are super nice ones with a lot of amenities, but like $40, $50 a night. So you add that up, the fuel to get out there is a couple $100. You're spending a couple $100 while you're there and a couple $100 to get home. That means that for a family of 4 to go away on a weekend, like a 4-day weekend, is only like $600-$700, which is pretty cool. Maybe $800, and then whatever you spend for food there, but you bring your food with. You have your own bathroom while you're traveling, so you don't have to go to like a Panera and hope for lunch in a bathroom. You can pull over to a rest stop, make lunch from the fridge, and then use your own bathroom and take it all with you. So it's just really convenient, right? We like that the trips are more frequent. We can take the camper out on a weekend and just go to like Starved Rock or Devil's Lake or anywhere in Michigan or Wisconsin. It's only 3 hours away. So it's more accessible, more varied. You go from spot to spot. We like going to Michigan now, and we're touring all the little towns in Michigan. We like Grand Haven and Grand Rapids and all that stuff. We like Ludington. Pentwater's cool. So all that stuff. You get to travel around. If something's bad, if you get there and you're like, this place isn't for us, you just leave and you go somewhere else. You still got 3 days. You're not locked in. Like if you went to a hotel and you didn't like that hotel, it'd be tough to move to a different hotel potentially. You just get up, pack up your stuff, disconnect the water and electric, and get out of there. You can come home if you want. It's also more, I wrote down here, more adaptable, meaning that like if you want to be at the beach, you go to the beach. If you want to be in the forest, you go to the forest. If you want to go to the mountains, you drive further and do that. In the winter, you drive south where it's warmer. It's all good, man. So we liked it a lot, right? But we needed something. We had to look at that and say, well, we like to do it because of all those good things. We don't like these versions of it. I shouldn't say that. The parts I didn't like about tent camping were zippers. I hate zippers so much. The sound of them, you feel like you're sleeping over at your friend's house in the morning and you woke up first and you got to wait for everybody else because the zippers are so loud. So that means we skipped over the pop-up stage because we don't want zippers or tent material. We didn't get a hybrid one. That's a hard-sided one with the little tents that pop out like a pop-up. We didn't want those because if it rained, you had to open those back up again. It's also, there's no sound barrier at all. We did the 21-foot one, hard-side one. Then the kids got big, so we said, well, if we want to continue this, to do it the way we want to get the most out of it, we need a bigger camper. Yes, we can definitely do with a smaller camper or kept that 21-foot one. But if we're going to do it and we want to enjoy it, why don't we just do it, right? The kids are going to be little enough and interested enough for a couple years to do this. So let's just bite the bullet and go big and get what we want so we get the most out of every trip. So now we got a 26-foot camper with like a 15-foot slide on it. It's enormous. It's heavy. It was just beast in my truck, my 1500. So I just got a 2500 truck. That's where I broke my rule. For 16 years of full-time work and 20 years total in the fire service, I did a really good job, and Katie did a really good job of not overspending our means, like living within our means, okay? If we wanted to do something in the house, if we wanted to move from we had a small like 800 square foot house before, now we have a much bigger one now. If we wanted to move, if we wanted different cars, if we wanted to do projects in the house, we would either cut back on the luxuries and like scrimp and save for a little bit to have the money to do it and pay it off. We would think ahead and plan ahead and then work and save like consistently and like purposefully save money towards a project so we could pay it off and get it done. And we were able to do that. She had a car loan for a little bit. I had a truck loan for a little bit, but because we did that, we knew we were going to do it. We put a bunch down on both, so it was small, manageable. This truck is a different story. This truck made me break my rule. And my rule was always like, I'm not going to work overtime to afford a luxury. If we can't afford the luxuries with just my salary and Katie's real estate stuff, then that's not a luxury then because it's going to add stress. It quickly turns into a burden. I don't want to do it. We're going to live within our means of just my salary without overtime as a supplement or as like a part of spending. Well, we needed a bigger truck because of who we are and what we want to do. No, we didn't need one. Yes, we needed one. So we bought it, and I said, I'll work an overtime a month to help pay off this truck because it'll take care of the payment and then some. I don't want to do it, but it means we don't have to dip huge amounts out of our savings to pay for this thing up front since we bought a private party. Went to a credit union, got a loan, now I'm paying off the loan, and I'm working one overtime a month to pay for this truck. It was a long story to get there, but here we are, and that's the rule I broke. I'm factoring overtime into paying for a luxury now, and I hate it. I don't like doing it. I'm not happy about it, but we got the truck and the camper we want, so I'm not like super unhappy about it. But if I could advise you of doing one thing, it'd be avoid doing that for as long as you could. For me, it took 16 years to break that rule of being a full-time employee, 20 years total in the fire service. I finally broke it. I'm not mad about it, but I finally broke it, man. Don't get into a situation or a lifestyle where you have to work above and beyond just to maintain that lifestyle. It's one of the biggest traps in the fire service. The 2 days off we get, and for some people it's more, right? If you're on a 4896, is one of the biggest benefits to this job. But like when you're young and you got money and you got time, you can dig yourself into some holes of like, man, it's a nice summer day and I'm bored. I wish, I'm going to go boating today. I think I need a boat. So you buy a boat and then you get a family and then you're like, well, now I got to work extra to pay for this boat. But then you're working extra and that means you can't go out on the boat or whatever the case may be. Cars, boats, trips, houses, whatever. You can think of someone or yourself who's done that before, right? Overextended themselves to where now they have to work overtime to maintain their lifestyle. Dude, if you can avoid doing that, it'll be so much better and so much easier because your situation will probably change. You might get a family eventually, right? And then you got to pay for that on top of all the cool stuff you have now. So you either have to work more or get rid of the cool stuff. But if you're living with your means from the very beginning and you get a family, you can still have the cool stuff and live within your means and still have that family, and it's all good. But just be so careful about that, right? Overtime is not your salary. It's not dependable. It's extra. You got to be there for it. That's the biggest downfall to overtime is you got to be there to make it. If you didn't have to be there, it'd be great, but you got to go into work. And for some people, it's worth it. I get it. There's people that are like, I want to make as much money as I can, as quick as I can, because I'm not going to be in this job for 30 years. I'm doing 20 and out, so I'm going to make a bunch of money. I get that. There's some people that say, I want to make as much money per minute as possible, so I'm going to get promoted and get stipends and do this and that. I get that. For me, the time spent at work was never as much of a value as the money. I got to say that some other way. The money you got from working overtime was not worth the time I had to be there. Does that make sense? I wrote it down a different way. Money is not equivalent to the time and risk of working overtime. Let me say this a different way. I viewed every minute at work, past when I needed to be there, as an opportunity to absorb damage, either physical or mental. That might be a pessimistic way of thinking about it, but that's how I thought about it. Other people view it as an opportunity to make money. I viewed it as an opportunity to absorb damage. So that's why we had the rule of like, if we want something, we're going to save for it over the course of it. I'm not going to put myself at more risk going to work more than I am supposed to, just so I can get more stuff. Avoid it, man. Avoid it. And also don't, at my department, overtime, it still is pretty prevalent. I mean, we do have a mandatory list. It moves. But it used to be where you could overtime your way out of a situation. I worked with a guy who's retiring next month. And he said, man, I would literally tell my wife, we're just going to buy this car and I'm just going to overtime my way out of it. Meaning it was that dependable. Overtime was that abundant that he knew he would get several offers a week and work it, and then he'd pay the car off. It's no big deal if you overextend himself. That is such a trap, dude. Don't do that. Do not count overtime as part of your salary. And don't count it as your golden parachute. Live within your salary as much as you possibly can, right? Because all you're going to do is buy more stuff, then have to be at work more, and you can't use the cool stuff you bought. And that's why I hate it, because one, if I work one overtime now, it's like this awesome bonus on the paycheck, right? But now I've committed to working one a month, so that's the baseline. Now if we want to do a kitchen project, it's like, hey, can you pick up an overtime shift to help pay for the kitchen project? Well, if my baseline is 1, that means I'm working 2 per month now. And if we get into it and it's like, well, now the floor needs to be done because the cabinets don't line up. So can you pick up maybe just an extra, if another one pops up, just take an extra overtime, and that would help pay for the floors in the kitchen project. That means 3. So now I'm working 3 overtimes, when before 1 extra overtime used to be like this wonderful thing. Now my baseline's 1, so it means 2 extra means 3. I'm at work 13 shift days now instead of 9. And so it's 3 more bad sleeps, right? It's 3 more wake ups at work. And it compounds. And I hate it. So I want my baseline work to be my baseline work. And then anything above that is like awesome bonus. But to keep raising that tide of how much time you're going to spend at work to afford more things, I just don't like it. Now, I will give you some advice, okay? I have seen this done smartly in the past, and it's by doing it reverse. Instead of buying the truck and saying, now I'm going to work at overtime to pay for it, which means that when I'm working overtime, I can't use the truck, or I'm going to buy this boat, and then I'm going to work every overtime I can to pay for it, and you buy the boat, and for that first summer, you can't use it because you're paying for the boat by being at work. See the cycle it gets into? What one of my friends did, very smart, to his credit, he said, I'm going to buy a boat, and he literally had to sit on his hands for a year, and he said, I'm going to work 1 to 2 overtimes a month for the next year so I can afford this boat. That is a wonderful way to do it. First of all, if you get to that 2nd or 3rd month and you're like, never mind, I don't want to work in overtime, it's not worth it, then you got a couple months of overtime stocked up, that's a bonus now.
but you know you really didn't want that boat. It was just a fleeting kind of feeling thing, right? It was a little more lust than love at that point, and you might have saved yourself a lot of debt. But secondly, you work your overtimes for a year, you go on your friend's boat a few times, you rent one a few times, no big deal. Now you buy the boat a year from now, and you've already done the work. You don't have to work any more overtime. You've got most of the money, and now you fall into your regular routine, and you don't have to miss time on the boat because you're at work paying for the boat. So if you got to spend something above and beyond, if you have the time, think ahead, be patient. It's not like you wake up one morning and be like, well, got to buy a boat today. I have no choice. I woke up and it's Tuesday, so I must buy a boat. These big purchases, boats, RVs, trucks, cars, all this stuff, typically you have more than a little bit of time to think about it, unless there's a catastrophic failure you need to buy a car, right? But the luxury stuff I'm talking about, you can be like, man, I really want to get rid of this car. I think next year I'm going to buy a really nice car. All right, I have 1 year to hammer down on overtime and make all the money I can so that when I buy the car next year, I got the money and now I don't have to be at work extra. I got the time to enjoy it, and I'm getting that car, right? That's a great way to do it. If you have the opportunity to do that, work on the front half, make the money, buy the thing, enjoy the thing. Instead of buy the thing, can't enjoy the thing because I'm busy making the money to pay for the thing. Hopefully next year I can enjoy the thing, right? Does that make sense? So I broke my rule. I'll be working to pay for the truck. But it's winter, fall's coming up, so camping season is winding down. It's all good. Not going to be missing much. I can work back half 12s, hopefully on a suppression piece, and won't have to absorb too much ambulance time, hopefully. And it's all good. But it took me 16 years. I broke my rule, and now I'm paying for it. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you've seen this problem in people before and you want to avoid it. And by going the opposite version of that, you can keep yourself out of some financial straits. Bet you never thought you'd be listening to a guy in his garage wearing a shirt of a tater tot doing back squats using a hockey stick as a microphone, but here we are. Hope you enjoy it. If you dig it, hit the Buy Me a Coffee button on the website. You can also just rate and review the show. That'd be cool too. I appreciate that. It all helps, man. It all helps. So talk to you guys soon. Be a four shifter and keep on working on being more capable and durable on the job and away from it.